next couple of weeks as we sit here and talk about many prospects and the Sixers' chances at number 3 and who they might actually draft or not. Could it be Ace Bailey or VJ Edgecombe? Could it be someone else? Could they move up? Could they move back? That's what we're going to start today on the PHLY Sixers podcast. Home show. We're at home. Home floor advantage for all of us as we stay home. It's raining outside, so we stay in the confines of our comfy homes. Derek Bodner, Kyle Newbeck. I'm Devon Givens, president of basketball operations. Bree, as always, hanging out with us. Good to see all of you hanging out with us in the chat. The Sixers are a big topic of discussion as they are the ones that kind of get the draft started. If things go according to chalk, maybe they get the things started at number 3. But could they throw a little monkey wrench in things and possibly move up in San Antonio's spot? Could San Antonio go in a different direction and allowing another player to fall into their lap in the easy decision for the Sixers at 3? We'll break it all down here on this Wednesday show of the PHLY Sixers podcast. So, Derek, when you do look at things here, as we start off with the conversation that we had on Tuesday, the day after the lottery, and we were heavy on Ace Bailey and a good amount on VJ Edgecombe. We'll get into more of him. Dylan Harper's name came up. We discussed Tre Johnson briefly, and we'll have some more of those players as we go along in this process. But number one, we told people to go and sign up, become a diehard member simply because you and Will Gottlieb of CHGO put together the great draft guide that is now available at allphly.com to lay out all the prospects, talk about their strengths, weaknesses, measurements from the draft combine, and what are some of the things that they could do on the next level. And Dylan Harper is certainly number 2 on both of your lists as you put it together at allphly.com. So right off the bat, everybody go sign up at allphly.com to prepare for the draft and check out the ALLCITY draft guide put together by Derek and Will. And Dylan Harper, we talked a lot about pre-draft before this happened, pre-draft lottery before this happened. And understandably so, people are still talking about him in the event that, hey, maybe San Antonio does something differently at number 2 and gives the Sixers a chance to take a look at Harper and give real thought about Harper and give Sixers fans the opportunity to get excited about Harper. So as you look at Harper and putting together the draft guide as you did, and even the discussions that we've had with Kyle, myself, and you and Bree all this time, just your overview of him, again, as a player, if you put in more work, more video work as well, putting this together. And then we'll get into the Sixers side of things after you explain the player that you do like as a scouting report.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, he is just obviously he's a big guard. We're talking about a 6'5" guard who can get to the rim almost whenever he wants. And, we talked a lot about the context surrounding Ace Bailey yesterday and how there wasn't a whole lot of shooting, how really the teammates around him hampered him and made his job more difficult. And Harper got to the rim pretty much whenever he wanted, despite that context. He isn't necessarily a nuclear vertical athlete, and yet he still shot, I think, 67% at the rim in the half court. He's got really incredible touch, especially with that left hand. He gets the free throw line quite a bit, and he's got good vision on kick out passes as well. He's able to maintain his dribble in traffic, get to the rim in pick and rolls and ISOs. Really doesn't turn the ball over much at all for such a high pick and roll player. So he has a lot of indicators from size to ability to get to the paint, taking care of the ball, making good decisions that really, I think, bode well for a lead guard at the next level. Obviously, the jumper off the dribble was the one glaring weakness in an otherwise pretty much exactly what you would want offensive profile for a lead guard. I think he shot somewhere in the 27% range. I should have the number right in front of me. I apologize about that. But in terms of shots off the dribble, here, I just pulled it up. He shot 28.7%. A lot of them obviously were from 3-point range, but even still, that's an effective field goal percentage of 37%. Nowhere near efficient enough. That's the one area he absolutely has to clean up. Shot well off the catch on much more limited sample size, but close to 40% off the catch, which is a really good number. But he is just outside of that shot and pulling up off the dribble, which I have pretty good confidence I think he can, correct and fix over time. He has a really, really good profile. I think defensively, there's a little more concern just when you have a high usage guard, especially on a team like Rutgers where they just have a lot of help around him, and Harper and Bailey had to create pretty much everything for that team. His defense came and went. but I think he has a profile where he can get through screens on the perimeter. I think he has a level of caring that will grow. Gives his defense room to grow over time. And I think he can be a building block piece on the perimeter. And in a draft that really only has, I think, took a little bit of grief for this yesterday with our show, but I've maintained for quite a while that this is two players who I'm confident projecting as building block players. It doesn't mean they're the only two that will come out as building block players, but the two I have a lot of confidence in projecting. Dylan Harper is one of those two for sure.
Yeah, so he has something that basically every foundational guard in the NBA needs in this era of basketball, which is high-level pick and roll play. He played, as you mentioned, Derek, him and Bailey played in a really bad context, right? Tough to find space, tough to find guys who are actually going to reward you for making the correct passes. And on over 300 possessions, running pick and rolls. And so that's him being the scorer or him setting guys up as a playmaker. Rutgers is averaging over a point of possession. If you just say the ball's in Dylan Harper's hands and we're running a pick and roll, we're getting over a point per possession on those plays. And that is really, really good at a high major conference in a situation where there is not a lot of supporting talent to help you out, right? And a lot of that is buoyed by the rim finishing, right? And so he's got the really advanced, despite not being the above the rim athlete, the thing that I love in guards is pace of play, right? Like you move at the speed that you want to, not that the defense wants you to move at. And so it's a lot of start stop. He has a good understanding of when to use step throughs and euros. He's good with both hands. Like he wants to get to his left hand, but he can play through contact with his right hand, which is a big thing. A lot of guys, even the ones that are willing to use their opposite hand on layups, on runners, floaters, whatever, once you get into them, once you make them play through some contact, those shots are going all over the place. So I have some decent amount of confidence he can do that. He gets to the free throw line quite a bit, and that represents a player who initiates contact a lot, right? A guy who will use his shoulder to lead with, a guy who, if he gets the edge coming out of those ball screens, out of an ISO, he's not going to let you creep back into the play. He's going to seal you off, and he's going to get to the basket. But on top of all that, the reason that pick and roll number of the points per possession are so high is that because he plays with that pace of play and he is tall enough and has the passing vision to see all over the floor, he can make a lot of plays as a passer, right? So he's not overcommitting, or he's not pre-committing to, oh, if I go this way or I drive that way, that means I'm definitely shooting, or that means I'm definitely passing. He's somebody who has good vision on the move, somebody who I think who can be a pretty high level playmaker when it's all said and done. And when we talk about what the Sixers need specifically, they are very short on passers, just a full stop, right? Like Tyrese has made strides as a passer and has gotten better, but I think all of us believe he needs to take another step there, and potentially multiple steps if he's going to be, number one option type guy. And so if you don't believe he can get there, you do need to bring in other players who are high feel, high leverage passers. I don't know that Dylan Harper is like, just give him the ball and he's going to be such an outstanding playmaker that you don't need other playmakers. But I think if you get another guy like him and add him to a Maxey, that makes a pretty big difference for this team, that you all of a sudden have one guy who you're very confident in as a next level playmaker. And then Maxey, if he's the second best playmaker or the second most important playmaker, you feel a lot better about that setup. So that's where it all starts. But yeah, as Derek said, the swing skill is the pull-up shooting. He's got good free throw numbers. He's got good toucher on the basket. Like there are some good indicators that he can be, at least a good shooter. And certainly the catch and shoot numbers are good as well. But that will be the difference for him between being a good next level player and potential multi-time all-star.
And as many players as we see at that size, around that 6'5", and can play at the pace that he wants and things of that nature, get to that pull up, That's really important because if they take away your driving lane to get to the basket and finish, and while he's a lefty, so he has an advantage there with how he may finish around the basket with both hands. The one thing that he's going to have to do is similar to what we talk about with Maxey. He's bigger than Maxey, but utilizing that mid-range pull-up game to make that a weapon as part of your game, to make them defend you in certain ways. So it is really, really important that he does that as he goes along. But as we talk about the things that we do like about him, I do love the pace. I do love the fact that he has this cerebral way about him, that he just goes about his business and does his thing. Take one thing away, he'll find a way to get it done in another way. And he does it really, really, really under control. Turnovers are turnovers. That's what happens with point guards. They just do. But especially when you're playing with other guys who may not be up to your level in college, and you see things play out the way that they did, including Ace, from time when he was out there on the floor with him as well. But also in the moment where he can turn on the scoring switch of just not being the point guard and having the vision to do those things, but also having to put up the numbers that he needs to, because he was playing with 3 other freshmen in the starting unit, that he was playing with Ace at times where the defense may be geared towards him. And as a point guard, I know what's best here. I may not be ready to pass to this other guy because it's not going to get it done. We need a bucket. The ball is in my hands. So the fact that he can flip the switch from both on and off of being a distributor and a playmaker, but also finding his way as being a scorer as well. Because when you're a guard, you're the leader on the floor. You're an extension as the coach, as they say. And you need to know when you need to do certain things out there on the floor. And we've seen so many guards now in today's game, both collegiately and in the pros, from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander being a guy that does both out there on the offensive end. Jalen Brunson doing both. Cade Cunningham, who he's often compared to, especially now, doing both. And as you guys both talk about the jump shooting, that was part of the problem with Cade Cunningham, as good as he was in the clear-cut number one. It was the jump shooting. It was the outside shot. Now, in that mid-range area, especially when he gets into that painted area, maybe steps back to about 15, you're counting on that to be a knockdown jumper. So as a young player, that many of them have had to go through their trials and tribulations of that particular piece of their game as they come from college to the pros, that's one that he's definitely going to have to make sure that he finds a way to knock those down at a pretty good clip, because we already see people talking about the broken jump shot and how it is, where he brings it a little bit too low for a lot of people and it's gathered and it's right in front of the defender. Is it going to get swiped away with these NBA defenders versus those college guys, where he decides to bring it up in the shooting motion? It's right in front of them and they can swipe right down and knock it out of his hands and mess up his entire rhythm. Is that going to be something that he's also going to have to just maybe adjust a bit, or maybe not? Maybe his hands are strong enough where it doesn't really affect things and his jab is good enough. But that's the one flaw that we do see. He's not super fast. He's quick. And again, plays at his own pace. So a lot of really good things, which is why he's a clear-cut number 2.
Yeah.
But his flaws are not as glaring as the other ones that we've discussed, where we go from one name to the next over the course of a day when we're talking about 3 and 4 and on and on. Fantastic guard next to Maxey. It would answer a lot of the concerns that we have, where it was Jared McCain a year ago, even when DeAnthony Melton was next to him at 6'3", but a decent defender, where you still had some of those problems with a big guard next to Maxey. And it would take a lot of pressure off of Tyrese Maxey on the offensive end to be able to help him out, set him up to get those easy looks, similarly to what we saw from James Harden. Obviously not putting him on the level of James Harden, just simply talking about he has played next to a guy that is, that passing thing that he has in him, where he can find Tyrese Maxey and get him some pretty easy looks out there on the floor.
Yeah, and he's quick, but he also, he changes direction well. He has control of his dribble, so his breaks are quick and decisive. He decelerates well. He does a lot of things. To get to the rim at that level, especially with those teammates, you have to do a lot of things well. And I think a lot of times we talk about athleticism and we only really focus on vertical pop. He does so many things athletically that's really impressive, including his touch and body control at the rim, that I think you put him in NBA spacing, I think he's going to be really, really good. Better as a driver, I think, than he was in college. I just think if you really space the floor around him and give him a big man, because he was really good at dump off passes as well. I think a lot of times we focus only on the kickouts. He had real vision and creativity as a dump off guy. If you put him next to a guy with any kind of vertical gravity at the rim and shooting around him, I think he is just going to carve defenses up. He needs that pull-up jumper to really be elite and to really reach his maximum ceiling. But I think he has a pretty high floor because I just think he has so many other athletic tools at his disposal that he doesn't have to be a nuclear athlete to be really effective.
And I want to add a couple things there, Derek, because I see you fighting the good fight in the chat. There were some
There are MCW comparisons going on in the chat, and you could not be further off.
People bringing up Michael Carter-Williams. As Derek pointed out in the chat, he is in a completely different universe as a finisher. But forget that. If you just look at their shooting numbers, Michael Carter-Williams shot like 10% worse from three on catch and shoot compared to Dylan Harper. So, like, even if you're worried about Dylan Harper as a pull-up shooter, and that's a reasonable concern to have, right? Like if you're talking about trading up, if you're talking about using a top 3 pick and a guard is a questionable pull-up shooter, that's a real concern. It's something you have to bake into your prospect eval. But please, I promise you, he is not Michael Carter-Williams. He is a lot better on that front. And then to something Derek said about the athletic tools that people focus on. One of his big ones is strength, right? He's really strong he's got great size, a great frame. And I think there are some people who look at strong players, especially strong guards at the collegiate level, and they say, well, you make the jump to the next level and, some of those advantages will go away. But I think that's true when it's man amongst boys thing, right? When it's a 22-year-old senior, when it's a fifth-year transfer, grad student type player. It's not when it's an 18, 19-year-old kid who's playing in his first year at the college level, and he's already big enough that's like, you're going to put on more weight. You're going to get even stronger. And so, like, if Dylan Harper were to have played 3 years at Rutgers, for example, by the time he's a third-year junior, he would be absolutely bulldozing these guys. And so you project that out and you say, as this kid gets older, he puts on more muscle, gets more functional strength, does core work, all that, he's going to have even bigger advantages against, a lot of the time he's going to be able to draw matchups and assignments where these guys will be multiple inches shorter than him. They're going to be giving up weight to him. And you've already seen even at Rutgers that there were times where they could throw him the ball on the block, right? You get him a mismatch, and it's just like, I'm just going to put you into the stanchion or draw a foul. And like, that's part of the foul drawing ability. So I want you guys to he is not Michael Carter-Williams. Please shed that comparison from your mind. Anybody who's in the chat, that just they're not even close to comparable as players.
Well, and then someone else followed up with a comparison to Ben Simmons. It's like, we're just picking every tall guard who wasn't an elite shooter. And the difference between Ben Simmons and Dylan Harper in terms of shooting is like comparing Dylan Harper to Steph Curry. Like, there's an equal distance between those two comparisons. And Harper, one of his elite skills is a willingness to get the free throw line. He shot mid-70s percentile at the free throw line. Like, he will attack the rim with no hesitation, which is the exact polar opposite of Ben Simmons and his flaws. Like, just because he doesn't have an elite jump shot doesn't mean we have to make every bad comparison. Anyway, moving on.
And by the way, seems like he loves basketball, where that doesn't necessarily.
Pretty important distinction, Ron.
yeah, not the case for at least one of the others. I'm not going to say both, but one is getting ready for his professional boxing debut this in May. So then there's the other one is going to be a free agent this offseason, and we know where that's going to play out. I suspect that Harper will be just fine. When we come back on the other side and get into a few other things, as people were talking about a lot of things in the chat, you're also saying in the chat, how's that going to happen? The Sixers have the number 3 pick. San Antonio is not going to pass that up. So we'll discuss maybe how that happens. Will the San Antonio Spurs be looking to move on from the pick? Will they be looking at trade options with the Sixers and other teams? Could it be a possibility? Anything is possible. Luka Doncic got traded this season. We'll come back and we'll talk about it all right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast.
Well, guys, if you are working from home like we are today, it's time to stop calling plays from your couch. And with TrueMark Financial HELOC Select, you can tap into your home's equity and finally upgrade that home office, build out a better space, or just finish the projects you've been putting off. With a HELOC Select, you get a great low rate, flexible access so you can pull funds all at once or only when you need them, lower rates than most personal loans, and no penalties if you pay it off early. Visit TrueMark.com/PHLY to apply and turn your work from home game into a winning play. Terms and conditions apply. Visit truemark.com/HELOC for details. Federally insured by the NCUA, Equal Opportunity Lender, NMLS 404938.
And guys, maybe you're not thinking about your home office. You're thinking about your fan cave, right? Where you go to watch the game, where you go to scream at the TV, maybe watch the draft lottery the other night. Well, the Mod Max sectional from Ashley can be yours to spruce that up for the price of free, because we've teamed up with Ashley to give one lucky winner the chance to bring home this flexible, ultra comfortable sectional plus a $1,000 gift card to bring your dream fan cave to life. The Mod Max sectional is spacious, built for the most diehard sports fan. So whether you're hosting movie night, kicking back with the family, or obviously on game day, screaming at that TV, the sectional is the upgrade your space needs. Entering this contest is easy. Head to allphly.com/Ashley to learn about the contest, see if you're eligible, fill out your info. That's it. You're in the running. Don't wait. These sweepstakes will not last forever. Get your entry in now, and you could be watching the next big game on a brand new Mod Max sectional, courtesy of Ashley. Again, visit allphly.com/Ashley for the full contest information and eligibility requirements. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers podcast. This will be on a Wednesday, 2 days removed from the NBA draft lottery, where the Sixers have landed on number 3. And yesterday we discussed Ace Bailey and VJ Edgecombe. Today, Kyle, the possibility of Dylan Harper. What are the chances here as we talk about he playing next to Maxey? First, he's got to get by the Spurs. So let's start with the possibility of the Sixers maybe trading up a spot. Is he worth moving from 3, giving up another piece of maybe a personnel or potentially a pick in the future where the Sixers move up to number 2 to have this conversation about Harper?
Well, so I think this is a multifaceted conversation. You have to start from the place of why wouldn't the Spurs take him, or why wouldn't he end up with whoever is at number 2? So you have to look at the Spurs roster. They just traded up and gave a big money extension to De'Aaron Fox, right? And De'Aaron Fox, while he's improved as a shooter, is a guy who is more of a ball in his hands. He's going to run the offense type of point guard. So that's concern number 1. You also just drafted Castle last year, and he's had a very good rookie season. Certainly really came on in the second half of the year, but it is not a lights out shooting guy. Like, you're not going to ask him to just stand in the corner and bomb away. He is more of a let him get the ball, combo guard type of player. Defensively has some versatility, so you can use him in different lineups. And so you just look at having those 2 guys in place and you say, do they need in there, like, just if you had any prospect you could have, would you take a lead guard type guy? And I would say probably no. But I do think the Spurs are the type of organization that cares less about that and more about, we think this kid will be the best player of this group. We think he's probably the most versatile skill set of these guys. And so you have to incentivize them, Devon, to give up that position. Here's the more interesting one. We've brought up already, because the Spurs they have Wemby, who's already incredible. They went and got Fox as more of a win now move. And jumping up in this fashion gives them an opportunity to say, well, if we want to go get Giannis, we probably have the best chip to trade on the block. And I think what has not been discussed enough so far, Milwaukee might be an organization that says, we value Ace Bailey more than Dylan Harper, because their draft history is sketchy, number 1. But number 2, I think their draft history is also, they try to take some swings on some toolsy guys, right? Like just bigger players who are more of the quote unquote upside type of swing. And so you might be able to talk me into, if the Spurs make that trade, that Milwaukee would just straight up take Ace Bailey at 2. Now, if we're just trying to operate within, all right, what is it going to take here to get into the number 2 pick with the Spurs? I think you would have to give up something significant. And by something significant, I think the most obvious pick or player to move is Jared McCain. I think Jared McCain going with 3 to get up to 2 is the type of ask that the Spurs would ask for. And that's a really tough one for me. I would say, based on where the Sixers are at, I'm not really in the business of trading up, period, unless you are telling me I can get the number 1. And I think that's borderline impossible. I think even with Nico Harrison's, let's say, creative way of thinking about basketball, I think he still views Cooper Flagg, like everyone else does, as the clear-cut number 1, as a bit of a get-out-of-jail-free card for what just took place with Luka and giving him all those options. But I do think if you think there's no possibility that Ace or anybody else is taking it 2, I think you're talking about trading 3 and McCain, and failing that, you're trading number 3 and potentially that 2028 Clippers pick, which is a really valuable trade chip. And I don't know that I am that confident in Dylan Harper that I'm willing to start consolidating some of the few upsidey or long-term chips that you have to go up and take him.
Yeah, I think Nico trading Cooper, he might be legitimately run out of town if he tries that. I don't think that's really in play, and nor should it be. By the way, there needs to be an intervention if that is proposed. In terms of 2, part of the problem with the Spurs, right, is if they are, there's 2 reasons they would trade. Well, 3, a Giannis trade, but we'll push that to the side for a second. There's 2 reasons they would want Bailey over Harper. One is just a difference in evaluation. Doesn't seem like a Spursian thing to do, but I suppose there's some percentage chance that's possible. But if that's not it, it's because they have too many guards already on the roster that they've committed to. Well, then McCain as a piece to dangle doesn't really seem like it would be interesting to them. So I see a tough path for because most of the Sixers trade chips, Maxey and McCain, are guards. I do wonder if whether that unprotected Clippers pick was that 2028, 2027? I always get the years mixed up.
I think it's 8, and then I think 29 is the swap, if I remember correctly.
I would entertain that. I would certainly entertain that. I think having the chance to have some certainty at number 2, because there were some people, and I made the mistake of going in the YouTube comments yesterday, but there were a lot of people who were like, "Well, you're too negative. Like, why are you so negative? They have this great opportunity." If you go back and listen to how we talked about, and specifically how I talked about the draft, I thought there was a pretty clear separation between 2 and 3 in this draft. There were 2 guys who I really felt like had a decently high probability of becoming, if not franchise players, at least cornerstones of the franchise. And Harper is one of those. And I think there's a pretty clear, like, I can make that projection a lot safer and a lot more confidently. So I have a lot of interest in trying to trade up for that. And when you're talking about, the Clippers pick, it could end up being it could even end up being someone like Dylan Harper down the line. You give me that kind of certainty, I have interest in that. I'm just not really, it's tough for me to see a world where if the Spurs make this trade, it would be to the Sixers. It feels like it would be to something bigger, like you mentioned with Giannis.
I agree. Of course, we have to think about it. Not tied to Jared McCain, 23 games in, as fun as it was. I would still think about it because of all the things that we just talked about with him, the fit in the backcourt with Maxey, taking some of the pressure off of the other guys. I mean, you guys mentioned having a big man that he could play with and get him some easy looks. I saw somebody say he only had 4 assists. How is he a playmaker in the chat? Well, you also have to, as Derek pointed out to someone else, go watch a couple of Rutgers games and you'll see why he only ended up with 4 assists a game. And this, as we keep saying, there's no knock on those players. Those players are Division I players, but a lot of those players just didn't finish on the passes that he made.
They were like
looked like he should have led to buckets.
Yeah, they were like 250th in the nation or something like that on 3-point shooting. They were really bad.
Right. So you put him on a team like this, where if he can do the things that we believe that he is projected to do on the NBA level, that 4 assist number should be able to jump up quite a bit. But the McCain thing, once again, great guy. He did a fantastic job at the lottery on Monday. Whatever luck he brought to it, got the number 3 overall pick. Good 23 games that we had a chance to see in a horrible season. And we like the player, but we're talking about the number 2 overall pick and the possibility of what he could be long-term next to Tyrese Maxey versus a player that has a chance to be really good because of all the positives that he has as a basketball player in McCain. It's just a little bit different from this projected number 2 pick versus the pick that they selected a year ago. And if we sat here and did a redraft of the 2024 NBA draft, he would be much higher than the 16th overall pick for sure. He was the leading rookie of the year candidate before he went down for the Sixers in those 23 games. But even with that, it's about team building. And we continue to talk about the smaller guards, excited about the possibility of Quentin Grimes coming back in a 6'5" frame. Now, Justin Edwards at 6'6", what he's done as a 2/3 for the things that he does, and adding another player with some more size in the backcourt next to Maxey, and then those other 2 players that you do have, and who knows what they do with the 35th overall pick. Maybe that's another guard with some more size in general. You really, really have to give it some long thought and maybe even pull the trigger on something like that. But I do suspect that they would be a little bit down the line from number 1, the Milwaukee Bucks, the Utah Jazz, a team that maybe would be one that we could also throw in the mix there as well because of Lowry marketing. And that would be the case for them. So long thought about it, but yeah, the Sixers would have to. I mean, the 2028 pick, because of the Clippers, that's one I think that one you want to keep. You just simply want to keep that one because the Clippers thing could go downhill pretty quickly out there in LA, and that could be really beneficial, and you might be able to use it for something else in the near future.
So what I would say, Devon, because and building off of something that Derek said, I think, yes, you do want to hold on to the Clippers pick, right? But just like we want to talk with, like, you evaluate players as prospects, and then you see them in the league, right? And so everyone talks about prospects a different way than they talk about once a guy's in the NBA, it's like a car coming off of a lot, right? In many cases, the value depreciates immediately. And so when we talk about the Clippers pick, it's that mystery box phenomenon to some extent, right? And it's like, whoa, it could be anything. It could even be a player like Dylan Harper. And like the reason you try to hold on to a pick like the Clippers pick is so that you can maybe get a prospect like a Dylan Harper, or like if you were to evaluate Ace Bailey the way some people in our chat or some people elsewhere do, it's so you can maybe get an Ace Bailey. And so I think to Derek's point, if you are in the school of thought and the camp that I think we are, that Dylan Harper is the clear-cut second best player in this class, and he is a clear step up in terms of tier of player, tier of prospect, chance to become a star, all-star, all-NBA, whatever it is, then I think there's an extremely strong case. Yes, you move that for the certainty of getting Harper, right? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, all we're talking about when it comes to draft picks and potential and all that is how many high-level players can you get on this team as soon as possible. And so I think I would feel a lot better than about trading just a future pick if I'm a person who believes I think Harper can be an all-star, right? Like these opportunities to have a top 2, top 3 type of pick and a top 2, top 3 type of talent are what you just do not get these as a team that has, Maxey in place, Joel Embiid in place, Paul George in place. Like obviously last season being what it was, you're not going into the future thinking, man, we're just going to have all these bites at the apple where we can choose from almost whoever we want. And so if you do think, and I don't know that the Sixers do, I think the way that they've talked about it publicly so far, they're at least projecting like, oh, we're happy with whoever of the 2 guys after Cooper are. And some of that is bluster and just putting on a good show for the public. But if they believe in their heart of hearts, there is a significant drop off after 2, there is great justification to use a pick like that to get the certainty and to get the guy who could be a foundational player for this team, rather than someone who, maybe like an Ace, maybe like an Edgecombe, Tre, whoever, who would be more dependent on everything else around them to be successful.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be some pushback because I think we all have a little bit of PTSD from the Markelle Fultz situation, and trading up to get your guy just a couple spots didn't really work out. And I get that. Like it nags in the back of my head too. But all you gave up to move up was essentially what became Romeo Langford. You're not regretting that trade because you gave up an asset to move up. You're regretting that trade because you made a very fundamental scouting mistake. So it's one thing. Like I think we all sit here and look. This is different because this could be an unprotected pick. So there's some risk to it for sure. There's obviously then some risk to passing up on Dylan Harper. So if that trade is out there, am I comfortable with it? I mean, look, if you're comfortable with the trade, if you are comfortable with the trade, then the other team probably didn't do a good job negotiating. It should be uncomfortable making a significant trade like this, especially when you're giving up a future asset. I do think like the point of having these picks is to get a high level prospect, and getting someone like Harper now, 3 years before that pick conveys, a lot could happen in LA in 3 years. That could end up being a 10th pick. That could end up being a 20th pick. Obviously, we all have dreams and aspirations of being higher, but locking in a little bit of certainty is, I have a lot of interest in that for sure.
And I certainly don't have PTSD from the Fultz thing. I don't personally.
Are you sure about that?
I have no issue. Hey, if you're gonna do it, you're gonna do it. I was even one that said I'm cool with it. As much as I know I like Tatum a little bit more than you did, guys, at the draft at that time. And what was that? 2019. I liked him a little bit more than you guys did. So I had no problem moving up for Fultz either. So I'm not in that camp of that. Just simply looking at the Clippers and their situation, yeah, they're going to be good. And they could also, to your point there, they could be top 10. They could be top 5 at that point. And there could be somebody there that with that pick, you could do something a little bit more. Maybe you wanted to use it in something next year as well. So it's not going to stop me from making that move because I do like Harper. But it would certainly make me think about if I would want to include that in a deal. I was talking with Heva in the chat while you guys were also discussing it as well. And Heva was more on you guys' side, like, hey, I'm not worried about it. Just give it up for the player. And certainly a fair point that you all just laid out there. So, yeah, not a glutton for punishment, Mar. I'm just saying. I'm not all that worried about it. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more, keep it going. Give you an update as well on what's going on in the association and the playoffs. We'll get to that in our news and notes a little bit later right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast. Well, I mean, we're going to talk about it and we're going to bring it up in news and notes. But when Kyle, Derek, and Bree and I, when we were discussing it, as we saw it happening, well, some had left, but we got text and we were communicating as it happened. It's like, oh man, got a little flashback here with this Jayson Tatum thing. And when I tore my Achilles, like Jayson Tatum did, unfortunately, I made sure I went to Rothman Orthopedics to get my ankle recovered because I needed it. I wanted to get it done quickly. I had been there before. I knew exactly what I was getting myself into as far as it being in the care of Rothman Orthopedics. So if you are like me and had to deal with some bad injury or maybe something a little bit lighter where it wasn't as serious, Rothman Orthopedics is the place for you to go, whether getting you back to your game is the mission or just simply being able to walk around with no pain whatsoever and just want to go on with your daily life. Rothman Orthopedics, once again, is the place for you. Year over year, Rothman consistently performs among the highest volume of hip, knee, shoulder, and ankle replacements in the country at over 60,000. It's not just the volume, at 250,000 of new patients and consults that Rothman is most proud of, but instead it's their commitment to improving each of those patients' lives through their care and service. I again raise my hand as one, and they took care of me, and I'm good to go. For more information for you, visit rothmanortho.com/landing/PHLY.
And guys, just like your favorite team needs a home court advantage, your home needs a home floor advantage, and Empire Today can help you get it. Empire Today has flooring experts, dedicated flooring professionals who focus on flooring every single day. We've all been to some of those big box stores, and they might have a flooring department, but the person helping you with flooring may have been doing sinks yesterday and could be stocking light bulbs tomorrow. Empire Today lives and breathes Empire Today lives and breathes flooring, and they will be with you every step of the way. Their flooring experts bring the showroom right to your home. You pick the right flooring and the right colors for your space so you can see how it looks with your furniture and in your house. You get precise measurements taken and have all of your questions answered so there are no surprises. With Empire Today, you get clear, upfront, and all-inclusive pricing. Plus, you can schedule installation as soon as the next day. Schedule a free in-home estimate today because some things are just better at home. PHLY listeners can receive a $350 discount when using the promo code PHLY. You heard that right, a $350 discount with code PHLY. Restrictions apply. Visit empiretoday.com/PHLY for full details.
Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers podcast here on Wednesday. Home floor advantage for us as we sit here and talk with you. Do want to tell you about the annual golf tournament that we have coming up here. It's going to be our second annual golf tournament, which will be Saturday, June 14th from the Valley Brook Country Clubs, at 2 p.m. shotgun start at Valley Brook on June 14th. We are a month away. Exactly. Today's May 14th. So if you have not yet signed up to become a diehard member, you must be a diehard member to join us and sign up. That's 18 holes of golf with a cart, limited edition PHLY golf tournament and tee prizes, taste of Philly dinner and post round, some beverages for you as well. If you want to hang around with us and talk, Kyle already said he's not golfing, but he might have a beverage with you that Saturday afternoon.
We will be there.
So make sure you, again, go sign up to become a diehard member so you can join us at the second annual PHLY Liberty Open. Sign up so you can hang out, golf, talk a little crap, get ready for the draft, because that will be about a week and a half away. And we'll have some good discussion that day with everybody from each beat on that Saturday, June 14th. All right. Let's get to a super chat that we have here from Mr. Sandman. Bring me a dream. Tatum is done for the 25-26 season. Milwaukee wants to rebuild. The team to beat are the Knicks. Got to run it back with this core. What do you think?
I mean, are we just going to skip over the fact that the Pacers have now made back-to-back conference finals and beat the number one seed? And by the way, this was something I wanted to get to in this segment. So good transition and good question from Mr. Sandman. The Pacers are a very guard-heavy team, right? And so a big part of the discussion during this draft process already, like leading into the lottery, but this will certainly be the case between now and late June, is the Sixers can't take Edgecombe. The Sixers can't take Harper. The Sixers can't take whoever because they already have Maxey and McCain. And it is a different value proposition to take a guard at 2 or 3 than it is for the Pacers to be using late lotto or late first or early second round picks on some of these guards. But I think what the Pacers have shown you is that just like we've seen double big front courts work at times, just like we've seen teams play, small ball with an undersized 5 or whatever, the Pacers are playing 3 and 4 guard lineups and running guards in and out of the game and playing a ball movement, spread the floor. Everybody on this team can attack you off the dribble and or shoot. And it's yet another example of, to me, the thing that people are missing and miss all the time in different ways about where the league is at is you just simply cannot say, well, because this team does this, we have to do this. Like when Boston wins the title, it's like you got to have 100 6'8" wings, and that's the only way to win. Or it's like Jokic wins the title, and it's like you got to build the Denver Nuggets. Or whoever wins the title this year, it's Shea. It's like, well, let's build the greatest defense in maybe NBA history, like the Thunder have, and just tank for years and build through the draft and trade Paul George and whatever. Like, you have to run your own race and say, who is the best player I can get? Who helps me now? Who retains value in trade talks? And so there are just every series, it just swings wildly. It's like, well, this is how you win. And then that team runs into a different matchup. Well, I guess that's not how you win anymore, right? So get the best players that you can who are good at multiple things, who are good character and work ethic guys in your program, who, when you take away their signature skill, are able to do something else. And stop being so obsessed with, like, it has to be this model, or it's got to be this position, or it's got to be this. That is not how this league operates anymore, because, frankly, you watched that Nuggets OKC game last night too. Jokic is very clearly the best player in the world, like undoubtedly the best player in the league. And he played an absolute A+ offensive game on the road in a big spot. and still lost. And SGA didn't even have an A+ game, right? So there are 100 ways to win in the NBA. You got to figure out what your best way is.
We as fans are absolutely prisoners of the moment, like 100%. Copycat to the nth degree, to the point where I think you get, a little bit of tunnel vision. Not a little bit, a bit of tunnel vision. Like Boston didn't necessarily win because they had an organizational ethos going out and getting wings. They identified 2 players in the draft in Brown and Tatum who were undervalued, developed the ever living heck out of them, and got the most out of it. It's when we talk about double bigs, sure, I'm open to double bigs if you can get the kind of skill set and talent and shooting and spacing and handling and all of that. It's all about opportunity. And one thing that a big guard like Dylan Harper gives you is flexibility. You can go out there and build a team in a number of different ways because you can go out there and have something like a Pacers sort of ethos where if the next best player you get, or if the guy you want to keep in Tyrese Maxey is a guard, great. Dylan Harper's 6'5". He can fit next to him. There's never a problem of having too much ball handling on the floor, too much shot creation on the floor. It's just, can you do that while maintaining your spacing and while maintaining your defensive versatility? If someone like Harper can develop into that, great. He gives you a lot of flexibility and optionality going forward. You build your team based on the opportunity in front of you, not based on trying to pigeonhole people into your preferred method.
Do you have enough defense, though, around a player like Dylan Harper and Tyrese Maxey in the backcourt for that to happen? He may be 6'5", but he's more along the 6'5" of the Tyrese Halliburton side of things on the defensive side than he would be on the Andrew Nembhard point of the defense. And Kyle, you're right. They have a lot of guards, but those guards play defense. And while Maxey will dig in from time to time, is that the case for the Sixers? So if I were to push back in that way, we don't know that McCain will give effort. Maxey will give effort. We've seen where McConnell, Nesmith, Nembhard certainly play defense for the Indiana Pacers, where we don't know that Harper will be able to hold up, I'll at least say, on the NBA level for that example.
Yeah, I mean, look, I feel pretty good about Harper long term as a defender. Do I think he's he's certainly not in the Edgecombe defensive tier in this class. He's not one of these guys that comes in and you're like, oh, he's going to help right away, or he's going to be a competitor for all defense if everything breaks right. But I think when you start with his positional size, I think there's enough of the give a damn stuff, right? Like that situation. So it wasn't always 100%. But I think I would say of both Bailey and of Harper, and we talked more about Ace yesterday, I don't think either of those guys was like a noticeable, oh man, I really just hate how he defends. Like that, I said yesterday, there's a big gap between like Tre Johnson and Derek Queen, who are guys I really worry about their play-to-play commitment, where Bailey is more of I see the flashes, and I think he actually improved over the course of the year. It's just about consistency. And so that's about his habits, but it's also about coaching and accountability. And who are your vets? Who are the guys who say, hey, this isn't good enough. This isn't up to our standard. And so there's a lot of that, right? And as you bring up the Pacers, their guards defend, but they're a pretty average defensive team, right? Like they've been in the past, like this season, I think was actually a better year for them, if I remember correctly. I think they were around 14th, 15th in defense. And prior years, they were lower than that, in part because they played kind of a lab experiment brand of basketball. And I think some of that is you increasingly have to look less into the defensive stuff in the regular season. It's just so much harder to project how good a playoff defense can be based on the regular season, other than at the very top. Because I give Denver a ton of credit for the defense they played against Oklahoma City. And they were, I won't use the word I want to use for their defense in the regular season, but they sucked for most of the year, right? They barely cared half of the time. So defense is also a thing that is getting harder and harder to say, this is what a team looked like for game 1 through 82. This is what it's going to look like for the 16 games you need to win a championship. So There's a lot to unpack, but I do think Dylan Harper broadly, because of the size and the general competitiveness that I think you see from him, at minimum, I think he's going to be a passable defender. If he hits above average or like very good, then you are really set up for the future.
Yeah. And I want to correct one thing because I was like in my mind, I'm still remembering his previous measurements from 2024. He measured basically 6'6" in shoes with a near 6'11" wingspan. Harper did. So a little bit taller than I was giving him credit for earlier.
And I do think he cares. And again, I don't know what he's going to look like on the NBA level. I just know that when we talked about the guards from Indiana, when Nembhard came into the league, it was because of the potential to be a defensive guy early on in the second round. When Neesmith was drafted by Boston, it was more of the versatility as a defender. Halliburton, no. We already know how TJ McConnell made his name in the league for what he did as a point guard, but also his dogged defense. That's where I was saying that at least their profiles are as such, where Harper, we're talking about him as much because of his offense, of what he could do. He has good sizes as a guard on the offensive end. My question would be the defensive side. Not that I wouldn't take him because I've already said I would, just as the comparison to what they have done in Indiana. I'd be very curious to see. I do think he cares, though, on the defensive end. When we've talked a lot about guys just don't give a damn on the defensive side. He cares on the defensive. And that 6'5" should help. And if he has the others next to him, if it's George and Edwards as a wing and then Embiid on the back end while Maxey's also on the floor, they're pretty set. And while they may try to find him, he is still 6'5", and it should be able to, at least because of his strength, as you pointed out, body up. The lateral movement should be there, and he could hopefully hold up well enough in that spot. So I'd be curious to see what he does, especially against a team like that does like to play that fast pace and get up and down the floor and see what he does when he's matched up man on man, one-on-one with whoever it may be opposite him that has more of an idea to attack him on that defensive side. Super chat comes in late from Larry Love saying he has Dylan, Ron Harper's DNA. And I think folks forget who Ron was, and the kid is an elite finisher with y'all. Ace had unlimited potential, but y'all, Ace has unlimited potential. I don't think anybody's forgetting that his dad is who his dad is. You know, his other son he has another son, and this son wasn't as highly rated. The DNA is there that he's a good basketball player. That's why we're talking about him. We're focusing on him for this show about potentially moving up to number 2. So I don't think anybody's forgotten how good he is. That's why we're talking about him, potentially moving up to number 2 from number 3 to have an opportunity to select him at number 2 overall. Nobody's perfect. There are weaknesses in his game as well. Derek and Kyle just ran off the numbers of the pull-up jump shooting. That has to improve as it goes along. His DNA, he will work, as both the guys have also alluded to, that those are the things that everything has come back, that he's a good kid, hard worker, and he's going to try to improve and get better. And going into the season, while they were both highly, highly recruited to Rutgers and talked about so well as one-and-done players, he overtook the number 2 spot from Ace Bailey. So this was Ace's spot before the season got underway, and he took it. And he came in and established himself on the tier all unto himself at that number 2 spot over his teammate Ace Bailey. So we know how good he is, and that's why we're talking about him and in positive ways that we are. Yep. So,
and by the way, on the unlimited potential Ace thing, in theory, everybody has unlimited potential. Like, that's, if you can't just say one guy does. It's like, oh, he's the only one. I could sit here and be like, well, Derek Queen could be Jokic, right? Like, if you do the whole, he's a good passer, he hits the one-legged Dirk fadeaways, he puts up 16 and 9. He kicked Ace Bailey's butt up and down the floor, including guarding him in isolation and blocking his jump shots. Like, you could play that game with a bunch of guys. As Derek likes to point out, and rightfully so, you have to say, how reasonable is it to reach the ceiling? How reasonable is it to hit the 75th percentile? And how likely is it that they underachieve, overachieve, are closer to their floor outcome? Like, and that is where the teams and the evaluators make their money. It's not just sitting in a boardroom and saying, he had a great game, he's the next Michael Jordan, right? Like if you looked at Andrew Wiggins when he scored like 41 or whatever against West Virginia, you would have said, man, this kid's he's the next thing, right? And Andrew Wiggins eventually earned a max contract for what he did on his rookie deal and was almost immediately one of the most overpaid players in the league. So you can't read so much into the flashes and the potential. Obviously, with these kids at 18 and 19, those flashes are important. You want to see the production. You want to see the what can be. But you can't take the best and say that's the ceiling, just like we wouldn't sit here and say the worst means that's what we expect as the ceiling, right? You have to balance both sides of it.
Yeah, there's two things that people love to say at this time of year. One, it's unlimited potential. And two, it's, well, he's only 18 or 19. Like, he can improve, and why put him in a box, and you never know what he's going to be, and he can overcome his flaws. And it seems like people only ever say that for the prospects they like, and they disregard it for the prospects they don't. Like you heard Marvin Bagley had unlimited potential and could grow into, whatever you wanted him to be. And you heard that about Jaylen Brown. One of the two did, one of the two didn't. And trying to figure out which one is likely to reach that potential is so impossibly difficult.
And one last thing on that subject. We have talked a lot the last few days about character, work ethic, what you hear about, behind the scenes stuff. I think the very good thing, if you're the Sixers or one of these other teams, I don't think any of these guys in the top four, or at least the consensus top four, have bad reps, right? No, I haven't heard it. Certainly Cooper has great reviews. VJ has great reviews. Harper has great reviews. Ace, I think, has good reviews. I don't know about great. I had to do more digging on that stuff. But there's nobody I have personally talked to that's given one of them like they don't work, they don't do this. And so like I don't think any of these kids are a risk to come here and like, oh, I'm in the NBA now and I just stop working. And so at the very least, that is a good thing.
And quickly, just your thoughts since they officially have announced that Achilles tear for Jayson Tatum.
Not good.
I mean, the NBA sucks. The NBA is great, but the NBA sucks with all these injuries. It really is. And we were talking about this the other day, yesterday, I think, when we were talking about the possibility that he had the tear before we knew. And it's just like how quickly everything can get thrown up in flames is staggering. It takes me off guard all the time. That is an injury where he might not be back for next year's playoffs. And look, nobody's going to cry about the Celtics. They flags fly forever. But it really is like you're looking at it, and that was a team that had so much of their salary situation was such that they had a lot riding on these two playoff runs this year and next. And now that's completely thrown in flux. It'll be really interesting what they do. The East is as wide open as it's been in quite a while, especially with so much uncertainty with Cleveland as well, given how they have flamed out. Unfortunately, the Sixers have, are the kings of uncertainty, so you don't know whether or not they can capitalize it. But it's a devastating injury. There's a real void in the Eastern Conference, and it's just it sucks for the league.
Yeah, they were already up for a summer where I think there were guys who were going to get moved, and because of the CBA stuff, and next year would have been interesting from that perspective. And now to be in a spot where Tatum is almost guaranteed to miss all of next season because of the timing of this injury, I am very curious exactly how much they're willing to send out this summer, and just how big of a step back they'd be willing to take in the short term to say, look, we have to punt this year and we have to swallow that as an organization. But what can we do to say in 2026, 27 with Tatum back and, with the proper recovery period, what can we do that first year with him back?
Yep, absolutely. Just want to make sure we let everybody know we have a super chat upcoming. And so we're going to go on overtime here at allphly.com. If you're finishing watching on the TV side, we thank you for checking us out on the Fast channel. Head on over to allphly.com to kick it with us the rest of the way at PHLY Sixers Podcast. Riaz with the super chat. I saw a mock that had the Sixers taking Tre Johnson at 3. It seems like a stretch unless it's a trade back. Is there any chance Johnson's the pick for the Sixers at 3? Well, we're going to talk about him at some point. So, number one, if for the people who missed our Tre Johnson show, we did one last week. It was a pretty fun show to talk about Tre Johnson. It seems like he's only helped himself at the draft combine so far with his shooting, his measurements, the drills that he's running through. Seems like he's really helped himself so far. Next up will be the interviews and the individual things that he does for teams. But right now, Kyle, I know we talked a lot about the coaching at Texas and all. But right now, once again, it just seems like he's doing himself a really good favor here by showing out so far in Chicago.
Yeah. And look, we don't read too much into obviously he shot well at the combine. So nobody was expecting Tre to go to Chicago and lay up a bunch of bricks. But I think the athletic testing stuff is interesting, right? Because I think a lot of people looked at Tre during the season and said, is the explosiveness there? Like, he's got good speed, maybe not great speed, good verticality, maybe not great verticality. And if you want to try to give guys benefit of the doubt with increased spacing and the better structure, I think VJ is the guy that always comes up there, right? Because he's what I think many people think is the best athlete in the class. Although Drake Powell, those numbers he put up yesterday, buddy, he's jumping out the gym. I think you have to look at Tre and say, obviously his primary job is going to be the shooting, and that's what he's bringing to the table. But the concerns you have with Tre regarding driving and separation and getting to the rim, maybe those are not as pronounced because you feel better about where his athleticism is coming in the league. We'll go much more into detail with him probably, before the end of this week, because now that they're in this spot, we can talk about trade backs and where Tre's at. But I've said it a couple times. If you're only in the mindset of, I need a shot maker, I need a bucket guy, I need someone who can be a potential multi-level scorer, I think there's a very good case that Tre should be your guy and not Ace Bailey, because I think Tre's off the dribble shooting is like total outlier skill compared to almost any other singular skill in this class. It really is just a conversation about, do you believe he defends? Do you believe he does enough other stuff to justify taking him that high? I think the answer is no, but we'll talk about that in more detail later.
Yeah. No, look, he has some, like I've said before, his passing, I trust more than Ace. His off-dribble shooting, I trust more than Ace. His just pure perimeter shot making is undeniable. His, shooting, when Kyle brought this up the other day, 3 half-court dunks on the season, and he shot like 45% at the rim. It's great that he has those combine measurements, but putting them in game was a real problem. And there are just some very significant weaknesses. And the defense really is. Like, I think there is a huge separation between Ace Bailey's defense and Tre's defense. And I think there's just a separation in terms of his willingness to defend, not only their physical tools. We can chalk some of that up to his situation, but it's not like Ace was in a good situation either in that regard. It's just so much easier to buy into something when you've seen it. And with Tre, we just haven't seen it ever.
Talk more about Tre on another day. But if you want to go back and watch our other Tre show from last week, you can find it there in the archives from last week, where we did a show focused on Tre Johnson from Texas. The news and notes were simply the Pacers knocking off the Cavs, which we talked about 2 years in a row for the Indiana Pacers, and Jayson Tatum tearing his Achilles, officially announced by the Boston Celtics. He got the Achilles repaired the very next day after he did so. So Boston looks to their future maybe in different direction than what they had initially anticipated. So we'll see how things go with that. Game 5 is tonight between the Boston Celtics and the New York Knicks back in Boston.
So much less stressful watching a great regular season team flame out in the second round when it's not the team you cover.
Yeah. It's a little different watching it for someone else. Yes, absolutely. All right, so that'll do it for us, everybody, as we are again at home base on Wednesday. We'll be back in the studio, we think, tomorrow for the show. We'll be back at 3 p.m. as always. But before we step away and get out of here, once again, the NBA Draft Guide, since we're all into it, and we're looking at the players and ranking them. Make sure you go to allphly.com to sign up to become a diehard member so you can take a look at the All-City draft guide put together by our very own Derek Bodner and CHGO's Will Gottlieb. And you'll see all the great stuff that they have in there, from the numbers, the write-ups on everything. And they even have a mock draft that they put up on Tuesday, the day after. So go see who they have the Sixers selecting in the mock draft at allphly.com. All right, it's time to say goodbye to everybody and get to the world famous. It's the roll call, folks.
2 quick things before roll call. 1, imagine telling somebody during the 10-win season TJ McConnell would be on a back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals team in 2024 and 2025, and it wouldn't be the Sixers. What a trip through time that would be. And Devon, you brought up that we would be in studio tomorrow. Gang, the only exception to that is if Devon is having a little too much sparkling apple cider after a McHale victory tonight and says, man, I can't make it into the office today, boys. So we'll see how that game goes. And
I'll have my Shady Rays on, Kyle. I'll wear my Shady Rays.
Boy, that would be a real flip of the script for you to be the guy coming in with the shades on. But thank you, everybody, for being here. Obviously, everyone is feels like we're all reinvigorated, right? We're talking about the draft. They kept the pick. We're talking about the future and what might be. It's so nice to see a lot of you that either we haven't seen in a while or haven't seen at all. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you to my guy, Eugene Ross. Thank you to
what up, Gene?
Thank you to Money Mar, Jesse Bond, Philly 0024. Thank you to Jess with the Purple Heart. Thank you to Mom's grandchildren. What up, to Mom? Thank you to Mellow 3 Point. Thank you to Mary Overfield, Duck Holiday, Ramid, Shahid, Bootzilla, Densley, Richard. Or is that Densley Richard? Guess Densley, you'll have to tell me. But welcome and hello and thank you either way. Riaz came through with a super chat. We had DJ, aka Mr. Sandman, with a super chat. Am I forgetting any other super chats? I'm not exactly sure, but thank you to all of our super chatters. We got Lamar Williams, we got SB Cole, Prophet One.
What up, Prophet?
Ronald in the building again. What's up to Ronald? Mitch Beats, Sean Ford. Who else is in here? Greeny Green. I'm sure PHLY guy was in here somewhere. We got my girl Winona, as always. Hey, Winona. Old Dirty Yams, who's got ODB in the avatar now. What's up to Yams? Welcome back, because I know you were hiding behind some other names recently. Jamie Lynch, our guy at PHLY, hanging out in the chat today for some draft talk. Love to see that.
The Eagles show today. There you go.
Yeah, baby. We got Marcus Blackstock, as always. What's up to Marcus? Val, who I think checked out earlier, but we know Val's always hanging around. Hey, Larry Love sent us a super chat, I believe.
Shout out, Larry. Larry felt like he was a little attacked today, so shout out, Larry.
Hey, Larry, thank you for being here. I know we talked about the unlimited potential.
We're just talking hoops.
Even if I talk back or even if we say we disagree, we're all excited. We're all having fun right now. We're allowed to. We're all in the family here. If you're on the show, so fun to have some family disagreements. Thank you.
Did you get Jeremy of the Mountains?
Who did I? Huh?
Jeremy of the Mountains.
Oh, John of the Forest. Good to see you. Obviously, thank you to everybody who was here today for checking in. Many more shows to come, including a couple more this week at the usual time, 3 o'clock, Monday through Friday. So we will be back tomorrow, Thursday at 3 p.m. I do know my days of the week, surprisingly. Public school education. Shout out to Westchester and HH. Please, on your way out, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you get notifications each and every time we go live. And as always, hit that thumbs up button to say thank you to super producer Bree, holding it down, and also help us out in the algorithm. We would really appreciate that quite a bit. Goodbye, everyone. Have a nice day. And we will be talking soon about Tre, about Khan, CMB, whoever it might be. It's draft season, baby.
See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.